Welcome to a short reflection by Sebastian Mahfoud on Canto 6 of Dante's Paradiso. At the start of this canto, Dante learns that the spirit who is speaking to him is none other than Justinian, who became emperor of Rome in 527 and wrote the great law code that bears his name. Justinian explains who he was and the monophysitic heresy he had to overcome. Though a Christian, he believed in the divine nature of Christ, but rejected Christ's human nature, until Pope Agapetus converted him in 535. At that point he set about the codification of human law, leaving the command of his armies to Belisarius. Having identified himself, he is free to identify his relationship to the history of a developing good government, ending the canto with an identification of others within his sphere, and the nature of the sphere itself, embellished as it is with the light of those good spirits who were zealous in order to win honor and renown. It is of interest here to note that Dante structures his canticles like ripples in a pond, dealing with, Ciardi points out, local histories, and moving more broadly outward toward global histories. In the 6th canto of the Inferno, for instance, Dante summarized with Ciacco the condition of Florence, and in the 6th canto of the Purgatorio, Dante summarized through Sordello the state of Italy. Here, in the 6th canto of the Paradiso, Dante is summarizing through Justinian the history of the Roman Empire, which entails a teleological vision that Rome was destined to conquer the world in order to bring peace to it under one set of laws. The application of Justinian's history of the Roman eagle, then, is an implicit reference to the philosophy of government that Dante advances in his De Monarchia, commonly accepted to have been written between 1312 and 1313, around the same time that he was beginning to write the Purgatorio. A clear division between church and state, he wrote, ought to be made, so that the church deals only in spiritual matters, leaving the state to deal in civil matters. We see the calamity that occurs when these powers are confused in the works of Pope Boniface VIII, when the purpose of law is bent and serves the partial rather than the common good. Law, in order for it to be law, is defined as an ordinance of reason promulgated by an appropriate authority. The Emperor Justinian, as successor to Caesar, is credited with the codification of human law, and the importance of this in the greater scheme of things is that human law has a direct relationship to natural law, or the participation of the rational creature in the eternal law of God, in its, according to J. Budziszewski, applications of natural law to the circumstances of particular human societies. Human law, then, is the regulatory function of natural law, the means by which natural law is promulgated and enforced. Not all human laws, though, need to be based on natural law. To the extent that man violates the general principles of natural law, St. Thomas explains, human law emanates from natural law. But to the extent that man violates only certain generalities of natural law, human law has no other force than its own convention. There is nonetheless a clear relationship between human law and natural law. According to Charles Rice, the natural law has two functions with respect to human law. They might be called the constructive and the protective. In its constructive function, natural law provides a guide for the formulation of laws to promote the common good, while the second, or protective function of natural law provides a shield against laws that violate the natural law. While human law has a special relationship with natural law, Budziszewski explains that no similar special relationship exists between human law and divine law, because government is charged with directing the community to its natural rather than its supernatural good. So God does not intend the enforcement of divine law upon non-believers. Budziszewski qualifies this, however, by adding that even if human law should not enforce divine law, it should not violate it either, not any more than it may violate natural law. The reason is that any authority human law has comes ultimately from God. The bottom line, holds Thomas, is that if government commands something contrary to either natural or divine law, its command is not a law, but an act of violence. Human law, then, is the practical application of our genetic programming, whereby we seek to regulate the social body, a body that is indelibly stamped with the order established by its creator. It is for this reason that good government is necessary on earth. For Aristotle wrote in his Politics that law has a pedagogical function, and that, properly administered, it makes man good. When it runs amok, though, it loses that function, and we find that reality happening in American jurisprudence today, with the Supreme Court, in the 1992 case of Planned Parenthood versus Casey, explained that at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life.